You have questions? America's #1 business coach has answers. It's your Broda from Minnesota. Here's another edition of Ask Clay Anything on the Thrivetime Business Coach Radio Show.
Nation, on today's edition of Ask Me Anything, we are talking about how to determine the true cost of employees. And so to tee off this show and get us started off in the right direction, in the right way, I'm going to read a notable quotable. This just in from Mr. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is the co-founder of Apple. He is the former CEO of Pixar. A lot of people don't know that, but he actually took over Pixar from his friend George Lucas, who was going through a divorce and the company was floundering. And Steve Jobs was leading the company at the time that they released the movie Toy Story.
So good.
And the company was basically headed to what looked like bankruptcy before he took over the company. He also founded a company called Next, which was later sold to Apple. So Steve Jobs was 3 for 3 in leadership positions. But he writes, I noticed that the dynamic range between what an average person could accomplish and what the best person could accomplish was 50 or 100 to 1. Given that, you're well advised to go after the cream of the cream. A small team of A-plus players can run circles around a giant team of B and C players. So what Steve Jobs is talking about is that, again, the difference between an A player and a C player is massive. And he's arguing that an A player can usually get 2 to 3 times as much work done as a C player. Think about that. An A player can usually get 2 times or 3 times as much done during a typical work day than the average C player. Paul, I want to get your take on that. Do you agree? Do you agree that A players and C players are that different in their work ethic and results?
I absolutely do, Clay. I think that may be an understatement. You know, we try at Hood CPAs, we try to help our clients create wealth, and you create wealth by leveraging time, leveraging people, leveraging money. But you have to know the cost. You know, if you're leveraging money, then you got to know what interest rate you're paying. If you're leveraging time, typically that's with software and things like that. You got to know what it costs you. And the biggest hidden costs area is when you leverage people, when you're creating income off of other people's efforts instead of just your own efforts. But you got to know that cost. And they're not all created the same, Clay. I mean, there's a massive difference. And if you've got any employees at all, I guarantee you there's a percentage of them, a pretty good percentage of them, that are B and C players. And you've got to take the time to measure the costs and measure the results to make sure and to trade out to get A players.
Chuck, do you mind if I share a C player story with you on today's show?
I like to hear these things.
They're fun.
Is it about me, first of all?
No.
Okay, then yes. No. Fire away.
Well, let me start off with a notable quotable from Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld, the wise comedian / TV star, he says this. He wrote, "Looking at cleavage is like looking at the sun. You don't stare at it. It's too risky. You get a sense of it, and then you look away."
Cleavage poke.
Now, he's talking about cleavage in one of his shows and talking about how, again, looking at cleavage is like looking at the sun. You don't stare at it. It's too risky. You get a sense of it, and then you look away. Now, why am I mentioning this?
Because it has to do with accounting and measuring. I don't know.
Well, we hired an employee, and she came to work for one of our businesses. This is years ago.
Yes.
And during the interview, she dressed very appropriately. And so you would have no idea what she was planning on day one of work. So after the group interview, after verifying her, basically she shadowed. After going through, first it's the group interview, then it's the shadow process, then it's calling what we thought was her former employer. Ended up being that she paid somebody to pretend like they were her former boss. But the point is, she comes to work, and I mean this. She is dressed almost like she's dressed more scandalously than if she was either a stripper or a prostitute. It was rough. And Sharita, who was my assistant at the time, comes up to the bar and she says, "Clay, do you see what she's wearing?" Oh my God. And I'm going, what? Because I'm not aware of this. He goes, "Look at that." And there is just a buffet of cleavage It was like almost like risky for her to wear it, like stuff might fall out.
Not risque, like risky.
I mean, it was like, I'm not kidding. She was going to have a costume malfunction at any moment. It was dangerous. So,
That's a workers' comp claim waiting to happen.
oh my
right
gosh.
there, baby.
And so Sharita, talked to her, pulls her aside. She said, Clay, do you want to talk to her? I said, no, I can't even look at her. I can't look. It's too
Give me my
risky.
blindfold?
Too risky. So go in there. So Sharita goes over there to talk to her. And I'm sure, I don't know how women process cleavage either, but she's probably looking away. And she's like, you need to go home and change. You've obviously seen the handbook. You can't wear this. You're going to have to go home and change. Not a good start. You're not fired, but don't ever let it happen again.
Right.
Well, this person comes home 4 hours later. She comes back to the office, comes home to work. 4 hours later, she goes to her house and back. It takes her 4 hours to come back to her home office. Yep. 4 hours. So now she has a task that John gave her that is supposed to take about an hour and a half, 90 minutes. It's Paul. She was doing a Dream 100 drop-off for somebody. He says, you need to go to these 3 businesses in a vehicle and drop off these gourmet desserts to these offices.
I'm pretty sure he even printed out the map and the routes and the stops along the way.
At first, he printed off the map, the routes, tells her where to go. Now, she comes back almost 5 hours later.
That's a full day.
And says she only was able to find one of them. And so I'm over there by the printer, kind of hiding, so John doesn't know I can hear this. And so John says, so you took 5 hours to go to one place? And she says, well, I didn't know where to go. I'm not from around here. And he's like, how did you get to Oklahoma? Because she moved to Oklahoma. Well, I used my GPS.
Oh.
Okay, well, could you not use your GPS for work? I didn't know if I was supposed to have my own phone or if I needed to use my phone for work. Do I get reimbursed for using my phone for work? Or
my data package.
And she starts talking about her data. No, seriously, she's talking about her data package. She's talking about I didn't know when I was hired I had to use my phone. I didn't know you had to use my personal phone for work, and I put a lot of mileage on my car today. And he's like, how far did you drive? And I'm not kidding. She claimed it was only maybe 25 miles of total driving. She claimed she did over 100 miles of driving. So on her first day of work, she'd worked a total of like 9 or 10 hours and hadn't knocked out a single action item.
3% of one action item.
Oh, it gets better. I've got C-player stories for days. We have a swipe card system to get into our offices. A swipe card. Do you have a swipe? Paul, have you ever seen those swipe cards? They let you into the building?
Okay. We have them ourselves to get into the building after hours.
And so you'll hire a company, and they'll install the system, and then you walk up to it, and you swipe the card, boop, and it lets you in your office. That's how you do it. And our office is not a walk-in friendly business, and so we have swipe cards. So John talks to a guy who is a smart man, you would think, and he says, I need an ID card. And the guy says, absolutely, I'll get it to you tomorrow. And I am not exaggerating, guys. This went on for like 4 weeks. And finally, again, John is a manager, so I love watching him have these conflicts because it's not really essential to me at that particular time that I get involved because John's got a lot of things to deal with.
Right.
And this particular thing was where he was in a situation with the other person, he could fire her. In this particular situation, he could not fire this person because of the org chart, but I was on the verge of doing it myself. And long story short, he says, I need the ID card. And the guy goes, listen, you ask me every day. This has been like 4 weeks, and I'm within earshot. And so John says, I know, and if you would just get it to me, I wouldn't have to ask you. And the guy's like, you don't have to raise your voice at me. And John's like, I will lose my voice at you.
Apparently I do.
It was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. And so the guy, immediately after getting yelled at, rightfully so from John, beelines over to my workstation area, and he says, are you going to let him talk to me that way in the office? And I was like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's his job.
But this person was sort of an employee that we inherited, and so I had to phase them out. Paul, you know how that works. If you buy a business,
absolutely.
sometimes you have some of the employees that come with it when you buy it, and you figure out quickly who the incompetent people are.
Yep.
But the point is, the dynamic range between the C player and the A player is massive. Now today, I needed an ID card probably 2 weeks ago. And because all the people are being managed by John and we have an all A-player staff, I'm not kidding. I asked for a card. I got a card like within an hour. I currently, whenever I ask, I said, hey, guys, if we're out of paper, which we never are because John proactively orders it, but if I ever need it, people come back with it quick. I mean, we have a team now that operates with a sense of urgency, and it is awesome. But by default, Paul, C players are going to creep their way into the organization, and they're going to spread like a weed and choke off all productivity. Paul, what is it? Why is it so dangerous to hire C players?
Well, Clay, people have their own business for their benefit, and you're wanting to create an environment where other people can succeed. But the reality is you have to think about your business like a professional football team. And if you're only as good as your weakest team player, and you have to constantly be looking for A players to replace C players. Like Jack Welch in his book Winning, he talks about it's not nice, it's not unnice. You have to rank your teammates between A, B, and C players. And A players you edify and you reward and you high five them. B players you train to try to get them to be A players, and C players you just got to get rid of, because you can't, the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Most C players are working harder at doing nothing or doing less than it would take them to be a B or an A player.
That's what I was just going to bring up, Paul, is that what I've seen through running my parents' concrete company and working with so many clients is that C players are literally looking for any excuse to not work.
That's right.
They're looking for any reason to not get something done, any reason to say there was a miscommunication. And so that's why you have to be recruiting. You have to get them out the door, because you're not going to be able to push them to an A-level status.
No.
Now, A players, Paul, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you going to say?
I was going to say you have to try to step back and have an impersonal look at people, because the reality is you're hurting that C player by enabling them to be a C player. They're just not in the right environment. But if you had a copy machine that worked about 10% of the time, or a fax machine, I guess people still have fax machines that didn't work, or a computer that didn't work, you would get rid of it to get a new computer. Ooh. You have to do that with your staff as well. It's unkind and not right for you to enable that person to be that way.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the definition of an A player, a B player, and a C player as written by Jack Welch. Jack Welch was the former CEO of GE, who famously grew the company by 4,000%. He's also the guy who wrote the book called Winning, where he developed he explains the system that he used to manage people at GE called differentiation. Now, the way differentiation works is step one, you make a list of all of your employees, all of them, and you put a letter grade next to them, A, B, or C. And you grade your employees based upon their ability to get the following 4 things done. There's 4 variables with which you rank your employees, okay? So first is their energy. Do they bring good energy to work? Or bad energy? Negative energy. But do they bring good energy? Next, can they energize the people around them? It's the 4 E's. Energy, energize. Can they energize the people around them? The next E, execute. Can they actually get their job done? They might have great energy. They might be positive, but if they can't get the job done, that's not good. And then the final E is edge. Will they make the tough call when it's not fun? Those are the 4 E's that you should use to rank your employees. This is how Jack Welch describes an A player. He says when people differentiation is real in an organization, the top 20% of employees are showered with bonuses, stock options, praise, love, training, and a variety of rewards in their pocketbooks and souls. There can be no mistaking the stars at a company that differentiates. They are the best and are treated that way. The middle 70%, B players. Again, the top 20% are A players. The middle 70% are B players. But Clay, what if I'm in a company where everyone's awesome? You have to determine who are the top 20%. You have to draw a line in the figurative sand somewhere and saying, this is what makes an A player. If you have 10 people on your team, somebody has to be the A player, somebody has to be the B player, somebody has to be the C player. And again, follow his system. The top 20% can be A's, the middle 70 can be B's, and this is how he describes B players. The middle 70% are managed differently. This group of people is enormously valuable to any company. You simply can't function without their skills, energy, and commitment. After all, they are the majority of your employees. And that's the major challenge and risk in the 2070-10, keeping the middle 70 engaged and motivated. That's why so much of managing is managing the middle 70%. It's all about training, positive feedback, and thoughtful goal setting. If individuals in this group have Individuals in this group have particular promise. They should be moved around among businesses and functions to increase their experience and knowledge and to test their leadership skills. To be clear, managing the middle 70 is not about keeping people out of the bottom 10%. It is not about saving poor performers. That would be a bad investment decision. Rather, differentiation is about managers looking at the middle 70, identifying people with potential to move up and cultivating them. But everyone in the middle 70 needs to be motivated and made to feel as if they truly belong. You do not want to lose the vast majority of your middle 70. You want to improve them. And now the bottom 10. The bottom 10. Before we go on to the bottom 10, I want to get your take on this here, Paul. I think a lot of people feel like they're A players.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just give an example. If you said to me, Clay, we have a praise and worship service this weekend, and it's going down. I said, what's going down, Paul? He said, it's going down. I said, Paul, what do you mean it's going? So here's the deal. The lead singer, the lead worship guy, he cannot perform this week. He cannot be there. And the plan B option, she is giving birth to a baby.
Oh.
And the plan C option is out of town for the holidays. And now we don't have a plan D. And you, my friend, are plan D. So get that cowbell and get ready to lead that praise and worship service. Well, the good news is that I would be aware that I definitely am a plan D praise and worship leader. There's a certain swag that comes with that. Absolutely. So if I got up there, I'd say, all right, folks, here's the deal. A player couldn't be here. The B couldn't be here either. The C couldn't be here. But we do believe that the presence of the Lord is here, right? Right?
Amen.
And we're going to need miracles and supernatural intervention to make this. So we're going to sing songs from the 80s because that's all the songs I know. I'm getting my cowbell and sing louder than me or it's going to get weird. Here we go. What a mighty God we serve. Everybody. Oh, what a mighty God we serve. We got donuts after church. God we serve. All the white people now. What a mighty God we serve. All the black people. What a mighty God we serve. Put your hands up. Here we go. And they're going, this is terrible. I'm like, folks.
This is horrible.
Due to, well, just for your ears, we've canceled the rest of the praise and worship service, but hopefully you enjoyed it. But knowing that you're a D player, it makes it funny for everybody that go, you know what, you are a D player. We appreciate the attempt. Thank you for, but if you...
We'll accept that.
Yes.
But if you're up there as a D player and you're not good...
It's not good.
And you're like trying to sing the national anthem, which happens at every high school game, every time.
Or a wedding.
And they'll go...
Oh, yeah, weddings.
Oh, have you heard the Carl Lewis national anthem?
Yes.
Let me cue it up.
No,
yes.
please don't.
No, this is big because this is what happens when you have a C player or a D player and they're not being honest with themselves. You see, Carl Lewis was asked. He's a gold medal winning track star, and he got asked to sing the national anthem at an NBA game. That's the legend. Now, many have said that he actually said that he was really good and he wanted to sing. He said that people asked him to do it. But this is how it sounded either way. Here are just a few highlights of Carl Lewis singing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see? And the rockets, red flag. I'll make up for it now. For the land of the free.
Take it down a notch.
That was Carl Lewis singing the national anthem.
Yeah.
Carl Lewis is definitely an A player in track, Paul, but he's definitely a plan D for the national anthem. And it's so important that you don't put people in a situation where they are an A player, but you're putting them in a position where they can't succeed. Paul, preach the good news of A, B, and C players.
Absolutely, Clay. You know, the fun thing or the exciting thing for me that I try to teach clients is, because we all want to be sweet and loving to our employees, is you, like when I've bought a lot of businesses, And the first thing I do is I go in and I ask the staff to tell me to write down what they do every day and what they enjoy doing, what gives them pleasure, and what they don't like to do. Because what I've found is a lot of times it's the manager or the owner's fault that they have a C player, because that man or that woman could be an A player in another role. I've got staff at my office right now that absolutely, they're traditional accountants. They want to sit in the back room. They want to talk to anybody, but they will blow out the work. And if I ask them to be on the front line and be in the marketing side of things and the people side of things, they would be a C player, but putting them in the right role. It's just like you and you were talking about being the worship leader at church. I could be an A player and a worship leader.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as long as we were lip singing. If we had to actually sing, I would. Is there something below a Z player? That's what I would be. But if I could
a C sharp player,
C sharp. That's right. But the point is like Carl Lewis. He's an A player in the right role, but he was not an A player in that role.
It was a good song.
So people, A players want to perform. They want to excel. They want to do a good job. C players try a lot of times to find ways of not doing a job.
True.
But if you put them in a role to where they feel fulfilled and they like what they're doing, they like who they're around, you could take a C player and make them an A player. Now, what I do is I don't spend a lot of time with them. I say, what do you like to do? And then I put them in a role of doing that. And if they're still not an A player, then they got to go.
And I would say this is something that I agree with Paul. I want to make sure that somebody out there is getting this idea. If somebody if they're a C player, according to Jack Welch, it means they have no energy, no edge, they can't execute, and they can't energize the people around them. If that is the case, you just have to fire the person. But what Paul's talking about is if you had somebody who has an A-level character, and let's just say you needed someone to do bookkeeping, and this person's specialty was marketing, and you put them in accounting, they might just do a horrible job over there. Because what Paul's talking about is if they're doing a C-level job in terms of the area of executing, I do believe you could move them to a different position and coach them up to an A. But I don't believe if somebody has low character, low energy, low drive, that person cannot be fixed.
You can't take a bad apple and make a good apple pie. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if they're a bad apple, they got to go.
One attribute that I've seen A players, they all share, is that they enjoy accountability. Mm-hmm. C-level players, they repel accountability. They never want to be held accountable.
Hate it.
Oh, I couldn't come in today because there was that review meeting or whatever. So A players like accountability. They get to brag.
Now, the bottom 10% here, Jack Welch writes, as for the bottom 10% in differentiation, there's no sugarcoating this. They have to go. That's more easily said than done. It's awful to fire people. I even hate the word. But if you have a candid organization with clear performance expectations and a performance evaluation process, a big if, obviously, but that should be everyone's goal, then people at the bottom 10% generally know who they are. When you tell them, they usually leave before you ask them to. I could not agree with that more. So now back to the root question is, how much does it cost to really have an employee? How much do employees really cost you? Once you've figured out A, B, and C players and where they are, you'll understand that a C player costs you almost 2 times as much as an A player.
Absolutely.
But here's the line item list of all the things you need to factor in. 1, the salary or their hourly cost. You must write down and determine what are you going to pay them via salary or hourly. 2, insurance costs. You have to write that down. What are you going to spend on insurance for this person? 3, Social Security costs. What is your percentage of their Social Security that you have to pay? Workman's comp. What percentage of their salary has to be paid out in workman's comp premiums? Office space costs. What does it cost? If you have an office that's $10,000 a month and you have 10 employees, then it costs you $1,000 per month per employee. That's a huge cost.
Big one.
That's a big cost. The other day I was thinking about the costs of the Riverwalk, and it comes down to about $600 a month per employee up there.
That's a lot.
Well, it's like getting everybody a really affordable apartment.
Yeah. Really nice car. Can we just go no office and just all have really awesome cars?
I've thought about it. Okay. So now, management layer costs. You've got to factor in every single employee. Again, if you have 10 employees, you need to have one manager. If you pay that manager $60,000 a year, that's $600 a month. That's $6,000 a month that's going out it would be, let me see here, so 60,000 divided by 2 would be 5,000 a month. So $5,000 a month, and you divide that by your 10 employees, right? So you're talking about, just to manage your people, another $500 going out there per employee on management costs. And then C players, what are they costing you in terms of refunds, upset customers,
Redos,
refunds, breakage, theft, all of the things that C players do? How much is it costing you? And if you do the math, you will determine it's simply too much. They've got to go. Faux show. Now,
Out the
Paul,
door.
for anybody out there who says, you know what, I want to get a free copy of the book Snowball, the only authorized biography that Warren Buffett has ever produced, a book called Snowball, the only authorized biography of Warren Buffett to be produced. It's called Snowball. If I want to get a free copy of that book, how can I do it, Paul?
Well, you have to actually go on our website or hoodcpas.com, or you have to call my office and make an appointment with us. You have to. The bottom line is you have to be an A player with respect to your own future. You have to take your future seriously enough to pick up the phone or to turn on your computer and type in hoodcpas.com and then come visit with us, or do it over the phone. We have clients in about every state of the United States, and more we're doing these meetings electronically. Take your future seriously, and then come visit with us. And then, it's a free hour of our time. We're investing in you. We're planting seeds. We're counting. We want to work with A players as our clients as well. And we'll give you that book. It's a great book. It's an eye-opening book. You'll see the principles of being deliberate and intentional towards your life in every aspect of your life. And it's not what we're taught out there. You just got to be serious enough about your future. Come on, and we'll match your efforts.
Step 1, go to hoodcpas.com. Step 2, fill out the form and schedule your free 1-hour consultation. And step 3, they're going to give you a free copy of Warren Buffett's only authorized biography, a book called Snowball. My friends, that wraps up how much it really does cost you to hire an employee. And Chup, are you ready to conclude today's show?
I think I'm good. I think we covered a lot of stuff.
And so now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!